Okay, so I'm back with some props. So as we were saying, the Bailey is single-sided. Most of our trailers, all the Irish ones particularly, but I think the Richard Weston and stuff as well, are double-sided. And what that means is that to create the ribbed effect, so you've got the outer box sections on a Brohan, and then you've got what would be a pressed steel panel. Quite hard to see in that light, but yeah. To create that effect, we just use two side pieces layered on top of each other. So you're going to be taking one side panel and you're going to be gluing a second one on and aligning it all up. With the Bailey, we don't have that. They've got a very basic side profile to them, so we just have the one sheet. The double sides really help as well. This trailer's, 4 years old now? It's still perfectly straight down the sides. You won't see that on a lot of scratch built trailers, and you certainly won't see it on printed stuff. It's just such a stable material, and it's pretty nice and robust as well. But yeah, ignoring that for a second, looking back at the sides, so all of our trailers come cut with the sides and the silage extensions separate. So the idea is that if you want to build a grain trailer, there you go, you're done. If you want to build a silage trailer, what we'll do is, we'll talk through it now, but introduce it in and give you that full size. If you wanted to, then you're going to make that separable. So they'll always come with the sheet as a single piece that would accommodate the full silage side. So the way we're going to work that is we're going to glue this side panel on. So just quickly running round. Same as with the floor, although there's less panels here now, so I'm going to glue every bearer. Then come down the sides, make sure we're getting a nice covering of glue. You're going to want to watch out particularly when we glue this on for any excess squeezing out. I think I've laid some of this that it will do that. And then just lining up exactly the same again. I'm going to line up with an edge. So nicely lined. Then let the rest of the body fall down onto it. So that glue is all down. Pressing it down, making sure that glue's able to spread out, giving us that good joint. And then I haven't got a lot, but there's a small area here where the glue's squeezed out. So I'm just going to take some of that excess plastic card we cut off the floor sheet and just quickly run it. How to angle that? Yeah, and quickly run it just down the edge and pull that excess away. Otherwise, when you paint it, you'll just see these little blobs and stuff sticking out. So that's the floor sheet on. If you were going to make it as a grain trailer now, you'd come along with your knife and you'd just cut it there. Equally, if you were going to make your silage sides removable, you would cut it, you would glue the side to this separately, and then you would construct a couple of tabs using the scrap plastic card. So once you've got your part on, you could actually glue a tab behind, and then onto the back of this sheet, you would glue yourself a little slot for that tab to fit into, so your side comes in, it just slots in like that. That's one of the possible techniques. I've seen it done with pins, drilling holes down, all sorts of stuff. You're just looking at ways that you can separate the two parts and have them come in and connect together. But for this build, we're going to stick to the manual. So what I'm then going to do, again checking for that chamfer on the sides to make sure that we've got matching panels, is come along and simply glue onto here. So I'm going to quickly go to my instruction manual to just reference, and yeah, so this panel wants to stick right to the edge of the notch. So you can see I've glued the floor sheet flush to the top of here, which is what you need to be doing. However, the notch here sticks out. So what I've just double checked the manual for is that this panel, rather than come to the edge of the floor, does stick right out to the edge of the front. And what's going to then happen, if I can find the part, is that the little silage extension part there, that will sit flush in this gap here, but is designed to not sit on top of the 0.5mm plastic card. So that part will be 1mm thinner overall than the main front floor part. Yeah, so we'll go ahead, we'll put the glue on. So we're not going to glue that edge either because it's going to be sat in thin air. Just quickly over with the glue. There's a million and one ways I guess you can put glue on. It's whatever feels right and fast to you. You get used to the technique. Yeah. What I'm also going to do is run a line of glue along the bottom here where it interacts with the floor. This is going to help again with where I was saying about warping. By making this part one with glue, you're giving it less opportunity to warp. So yeah, putting it on, lining that up. I've just glued myself to it because I've grabbed hold of the end that I glued. Occupational hazard. But yeah, so we're going to line that up there, pushing it firm up against the floor, and then making sure that it's all pushed down as well. Just on a note there, nice little tip with super glue. If you do glue yourself to it, it should just peel away. In theory, someone once told me they had a brilliant tip to stop super glue sticking to you, or stop you super gluing yourself to parts. Unfortunately, that tip was cover your fingers in super glue initially, rub them around, let it dry. No more super glue will then stick on. However, you do have super glue all over your fingers. So I thought it was a bit of a rubbish technique, to be fair. But yeah, so that is one side panel. What we're going to do now, again, come in with the knife and just trim away this excess. So on that top sheet there, because it's quite thin, I'm not going to be able to bend that. I'm just going to keep running over it until I feel that the knife has come all the way through. There you go, and you can see it peel away itself. So then following the chamfer, same thing again, and then into the corners. Run along that back face as well. So here I'm looking less at getting all the way through and more at just scoring those edges, because what I'm then going to be able to do is just go and pull it away. Lovely jubbly. So I'll just quickly tidy those ends up with the sandpaper, and we will repeat that process in mirror for the other side. So that's the biggest bit to watch out for here, is that you don't go and glue those two side panels the same way up. This will want to be glued opposite to give you that opposite side panel. So I'll do that and we'll come back for assembling the body. So just one other bit on the side panel before we move on. We're going to have to make the hole for the tailgate pivot. So it's laser cut there into the side panel, and that's where the tailgate will pivot from. But what it isn't is cut into the thin sheet. So we're just going to have to cut that in ourselves now. So if you've got a small set of drill bits, perfect, really easy to do. So that will be a 1.5mm hole there. You just want to go in with your drill bit through, pop out into the back. But because these kits are designed to be accessible and simple to use, you don't need that drill bit. So the way we're going to work it, let's see if I can do this in reverse now because the light's shining in that direction. But we're just going to hold it up to a piece of a light source, and you're looking for that hole. You're going to make a mark. So I'm going to have to do that in reverse, sorry. So there we go. Made that little cross. That's where it is. All we're going to do then is go in with the knife and just puncture it. So we're just going to make a little pop in. Pop in. And then turn the knife slightly. Just be careful not to snap the blade or anything. But just screwing in. And that should be enough then that we can go in and scoop round the hole to take that material out. There we go. So we can see daylight through that hole again now. Just take your thin wire as well from the box and just double check that that hole is enough to get through. So the tailgate's held on with the thinner of the two pieces of green wire. Green on green as well. But yeah, there you go. Pop it through, make sure that it goes through the hole. Lovely stuff. So repeat that on the other side as well. So with the sides, the floor built up, next we need the front, and then we can start to build it up into a body shape. So the front on this one is a laser cut plastic sheet, a 0.5mm plastic card. You won't see that in any of the other silage trailers. but you will see it here and there in kits. So gate valves on any tankers, dribble bar, the pivot bars are there, this material. So it's a useful tip for a few of the different kits, but just remember that that's been laser cut and it has a protective sheet on both sides. So this is just masking tape, so you're just going to want to come in with your knife again, same as that blue plastic, grab the corner and just peel it off. Just taking care, the masking tape holds a little bit stronger than the blue plastic does, and you don't want to rip or distort the part because it's quite thin plastic. If you really pull hard on it, you will actually bend it, and where we've got like quite delicate joints there, you would tear through the plastic if you're not careful. So just nice and easy, especially this is one of the last of the Baileys I've got in stock, so these were probably cut sometime early on last year, so that masking tape's been in place for a while now. Just make sure it's warm as well, because the adhesive stuff, that's always going to be more brittle when it's cold. So just peeling it away, nice and simple. So we're going to build the front panel up as per the instruction manual. So again, exactly the same as if you were building the grain trailer on its own. You're going to actually cut the top off the panel. We're building the silage trailer version, so that's going to stay in place. And if you're, once again, wanting to make it separable so that you can drop the silage sides on and off, you're going to want to cut it, but cut it carefully so that you've got that usable material left to build the top panel separately. And once again, you're going to want to make a tab or something that lets it drop into place. So I will finish faffing with this. It's not all easy, you see, and no one's going to be perfect at doing these. You've got to take your time with it and not lose your patience. I apologise that this probably doesn't make the most interesting bit of video, but I just want to get through it without cutting so that then we can drop into building the side up. And the bits to note there. So just getting that last little bit off. There we go, perfect. So just clear that scrap away. Quick going over once again with the sandpaper. Get everything looking fine. Clear those out the shot. We're literally just looking to rough it up so that that paint can't pool and turn into blobs. That paint is going to stay stuck where we put it on. So we're always thinking ahead as well what we've got to be doing. There you go. So whereas on the previous bits we just glued in anywhere that felt right, you're going to want to line this panel up. You can see that the bottom goes in line and the sides are the perfect width for that section there. And what that then is going to do is mean that we've got the right boundary around this curved part. So it's same either side and the same top and bottom. So we checked that lines up, we know that's going to work, so we can put some glue on and do it for real this time. Again, not too much glue, we don't need loads, we're not drowning it. And we don't need to glue all the way down these edges either, because as you can see the sheet is thinner than the outer of those. So I've only put the glue on as and where it is needed. And you just start to get a feel for that. You can see as you're building up where stuff is and isn't going to work. So holding on to the edges, bringing it down, there's the bottom, and then in line on that side, in line on that side, and perfect. Quick press down, make sure that glue spreads as we've been saying. Lovely. And that's the point now where if you're building your grain trailer, you're just going to cut with your knife along there. Again, really nice thin cuts because you're going with a curve now and the knife will want to travel straight. So the thinner and the lighter the cut, the better. And just keep going until it comes off. But we're going to glue the top panel on as well, and as you can see, that lines up specifically there with that part. So we've checked that it works, and now glue on. And gluing that bottom edge, because that's going to interact then with the top of that curve. Lining everything up, bringing it in, and dropping it on. There we go. So just making sure that that thin top piece, that might have warped slightly with the laser cutting, just using the flat panel to make sure that it glues straight. There you go, that's the front panel ready to go. So we can now build the body up, and we're pretty much just building a box. Same for most of the silage trailers. Stuff like the Fraser, the Stewart, they're a little bit more complicated because they've got these tapered sides on them. But most of them, nice and simple, just making a box. So we're going to start off, in theory, we're going to start off just by gluing the floor sheet on. What we're actually going to do is in succession, glue the floor and the front on to build up that box shape. So what I will do is run a line of glue along the side of the floor. This wants to be a little bit thicker applied than when we're gluing the parts back to back, but not too much. Just using the glue nozzle there to spread it all out a bit. We're also going to apply a line of glue along the front. So this will make it simpler when we come to drop that front panel on. So looking at the manual, and looking at the way that this goes together, that front panel is going to come into place to the front and just overhang ever so slightly. So what I'm going to do is take my pencil and just mark where that overhang comes to. So you can see it overhangs by 0.5mm, which is the sheet thickness. And it does that all the way to the bottom. So then, taking the floor sheet, we're just going to line it up with that mark at the front and then run it along the floor like so. And then going to use the corner of the table because we've got that drop at the bottom, just to make sure that that floor sheet is sitting perfectly flush. Come in again with our sprue just to make sure it's all sat square. And then before that sets completely, we can come in, get a bit of glue along the panel here and up the sides here. And we can actually bring that front panel in, and that is going to let it sit flush with the front. There we go. So again, just making sure that it all sits in nice and square. Using that extra piece of sprue to push this in square so that the joint comes in. Because there's no guide piece to the front panel, you want to make sure that is glued perfectly square so that the other side will line up correctly as well. You can even use that other side and just double check that it is sitting where you want it, which is there. So just hold that in place while the glue sets. Yeah, and then we're going to go ahead and drop that other side panel into place. So we'll run the glue along. Along there, and then we know that it's going to interact in that direction here. We'll put it on that edge. It's just a bit easier to glue to the edges than try and glue to any flat sheets. Just guiding that panel in now, nice and easy. And just making sure that it all sits nice and flush and nice and straight. So you want to make sure at this point that your body is square, because it's going to be very, very noticeable in the finished product if it isn't. But you can see we're sitting nice and in line. And so that's all dried up now. As we go through the rest of the guide, it's just going to be gluing more mounts on, more bits on. So we will come back now with a product that is near enough ready to paint. So we've got the main three components boxed off now. We've got the body, tailgate, chassis. The only bit now to do that we haven't sort of shown working with is putting the mesh sheet into the top. So on the Baileys, we've got a piece of mesh to go into the silage side extension windows, and then we've got a laser cut part of clear perspex that glues into the bottom panel. Perspex, we're going to leave that out until after paint because we don't want to get paint on the clear plastic. But we do want this to be painted green, so we're going to cut it to size and glue it into place. Now, you can cut this with scissors. Again, wouldn't use the best scissors in the house because you will risk slightly damaging it. At the end of the day, it is metal. I use a pair of tin snips. Tin snips are something I use a lot within the building. They're good for cutting the wires, they're good for cutting the mesh. They're just handy to have around. But if you don't have a set, like I say, a well-used or cheap pair of scissors is probably the best option. So all we're going to do to start with is to neaten up one side. Like you see, it cuts through so easily with these tin snips. We're going to line it with the body that it's got to fit. Line it up with the body that it has to fit into. Looking for the line that we're going to follow. Then we're just going to cut it down. That will give us a width. And then again, looking for how far you want to go down. Look for that line and cut along it. You'll notice we've got a lot of excess mesh on this one. We just put the same size piece of mesh in most boxes, and most of the time in the silage trailers you are covering a larger area. So normally you won't have so much left over. Don't worry, that is right for the Bailey. And then all we're going to do, just double check before we glue anything that does fit in that area. Lovely. And then we're going to put quite a thick layer of glue on this because it's got to kind of come up and over the edges of that wire mesh. So it's almost going to sink into the glue. If you've got something like contact adhesive around, you might want to use that to glue this in place. It doesn't glue the best with super glue. It will go though. So we're going to line it up there. Then just be careful when you press it down. Obviously the glue's going to seep through and trying to stick to your fingers as well. So just on the very edges of your fingers as you're pushing down. You're going to want to hold that down for a little while to let that glue properly hold on. But that, for the Bailey anyway, that signs off everything that we're going to have to do now before paint. So I'll just keep this held down for a bit and then come back to you when we're ready to paint. As you can see by the fading light, we are getting later in the day and still editing this video. Who'd have thought YouTubing was hard work? But yeah, so I think this should now be the last part that we're moving into. So that'd make a 4-part series. Sounds quite good to me. So yeah, we'll pick up on the paint and on the final assembly in the last episode now.